Welcome to Transcending the Rabbit Hole. I'm Brandy Anderson. I'm a spiritual director and Jungian coach on an ever-winding contemplative path of becoming. I'm the author of Through the Veil, A Glimpse into the Afterlife, and co-host of Spectral Symposium podcast. I'm joined today by my very good friends and co-hosts, Annelise and Parker Bess. Annelise is a singer, songwriter, sound healer, and spiritual influencer dedicated to raising human consciousness as she shares her awakening journey on TikTok. Parker is a true knowledge seeker and truth bringer in the realm of esoteric wisdom. Parker has a solid understanding of metaphysical concepts with expertise in the shadowy corridors of secret societies, occult knowledge, and ancient aliens and ufology. We invite you to pry open your third eye and journey with us through the cosmic rabbit hole as we alchemize esoteric insights in a quest for ultimate truth.
Falling down the rabbit hole again.
Welcome back to another episode of Transcending the Rabbit Hole. Today we're going to be discussing the fascinating and often misunderstood concept of karma. We've all heard the saying, what goes around comes around. Or perhaps you've pondered the invisible scales of justice that seem to govern the ebb and flow of fortune in our lives. But karma is more than just a mystical idea from the East. It's a profound philosophy that spans cultures and centuries, offering a unique lens through which we can view our actions, intentions, and their ripple effects across time. In this episode, we'll unpack the meaning of karma, explore its purpose in our lives, and delve into the deeper implications of karma as it relates to awakening. We'll also tackle the burning question, does karma predetermine our lives, or do we play an active role in shaping our own destinies? So without further ado, let's get into it. Hey, Annelise and Parker, it's a privilege to transcend this rabbit hole with you guys.
Hey, Brandy. Good to be here.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Yeah, so this is an exciting topic, karma. And there are I think a lot of people refer to karma like, oh, people are going to get what they deserve, and they refer to it a lot, but I think it's often misunderstood and misappropriated. And, even people who maybe refer to karma, they're not really thinking about how those karmic cycles kind of play out in their own lives. So I thought a good place to start would be just to kind of, what is karma? And if you guys are okay with it, I'll kick us off and
go
ahead.
Yeah,
just give my spiel on what I think karma is. And the way that I understand it, first of all, the word karma means action and effect. So the meaning encompasses both action and reaction, or cause and consequence. And I'm sure we've all heard the expression, we're free to choose, but we're not free from the consequences of our choice. And it's often thought that karma is some external force bringing punishment for bad actions and reward for good actions. But karma isn't some mysterious force in the ether bringing our comeuppance. In reality, karma is the unconscious conditioning that's running our lives. And this is why shadow work is so important. And we did an episode on shadow work already, so I would encourage you to just go and check that out if you feel inclined to understand that a little more. But just as we're all born into certain external environments, we're also born with certain internal patterns. And it's the conditioning of previous lifetimes that has become the driving force in our lives. And it can be understood as personality. Like if you watch small children, you'll see certain propensities come online early, ingrained ways of seeing and being in the world. And we don't exist in a vacuum. There are all sorts of internal and external factors that shape our lives in profound ways. And we often repeat the same patterns over multiple lifetimes because we are always operating out of that same psyche, the same conditioning. So we have the same propensities across multiple incarnations. And karma is often oversimplified into categories of good and bad. I mean, we've all heard of good karma or bad karma, but in reality, karma is really just those situations and circumstances that work to refine us and bring us into our highest life path. So it's not about living perfect lives, but about becoming aware of our shadow elements and letting go of the illusions that hinder us from becoming who we were created to be. And everything is energy. All of our actions, attitudes, thoughts, and emotions are energy in motion. And everything we do generates corresponding energy that automatically comes back to us in some form. People don't get what they deserve. They get what they are a vibrational match for. And the vibrational energy that we embody acts like a magnet, drawing to us corresponding energies. Think of it as an algorithm. Where you place your awareness determines the frequency within and around you, and that determines what comes your way. And it's important to note that judgment and punishment are not part of the karmic equation. Karma is simply the universe giving you opportunities to awaken. The universe brings us what we cultivate inwardly. We reap the harvest that we have sown. And if you cultivate an inner attitude of anger, for example, the universe will send you more opportunities to be angry. It's like, oh, you like being angry? Here's some more irritating people and circumstances to trigger that anger. And if you suffer enough in that capacity, maybe you'll awaken out of that pattern and integrate your shadow material so that you can be free from that trigger. But alternately, though, if you cultivate an inner attitude of gratitude, the universe will send you more things to be grateful for. But it really isn't about doing good deeds to have good done to you. That's an oversimplification, and it's sadly a principle often used in churches around the idea of tithing. And preachers will often say, like, if you tithe a certain amount, you'll receive financial abundance. Like, they don't use the word karma, but they're drawing on the principle of karma as reaping and sowing, which is just the biblical framework for karma. And the way that they frame it is misguided at best and malicious at worst. It's often framed in a transactional way. Like if I give X number of dollars, the Lord will send me X number of dollars. But in reality, you get what you're a vibrational match for. You could tithe all the money in your bank account, but if you have not cultivated an inner generosity, it won't bring the windfall that you're hoping for. Giving to get is not generosity. So it's really about our heart posture. And the universe responds to who we really are, not who we pretend to be. And I just want to say this before I close out on what I'm sharing here. The wheel of karma is associated with reincarnation, which we'll be discussing more in our next episode. But karma is basically the universal law that governs the outflow of all action. Every action creates a ripple in the ether, and it has an effect. And because we are all one, every action ultimately impacts ourselves. And so the karmic cycle includes cyclical incarnations or reincarnation as we work things out on a karmic level. But ultimately, we will all wake up and step off this wheel of karma and be free. But until we do, we keep going in the same circles while life sends us the same lessons, but wrapped in different packages. So anyway, I've said a lot, so I'll just stop here and see what's coming up for Parker and Annelise right now.
Oh, I think you touched on everything.
No, I said a lot. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was just going to say the universal law, cause and effect. It was, that's essentially what it is, boiled down to, and cause and effect, and then the vibrational state, if you're in a low vibration and, like you said, just angry or, I don't know, triggered by somebody cutting you off in traffic, and that happens all the time. That's what it is. It's karma. It's a cause and effect.
Yeah.
I'm kind of new to the world of karma, as I've mentioned to y'all, because obviously that's not my background, but it has shown to be reality when I started following the universal laws. A couple of years ago, it was Parker who told me about, hey, did you know the universe has laws? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because I didn't learn that in school. He's like, of course you didn't. And when I started learning those and what it means and kind of trying to like embody it, like you said, doing the gratitude journal and finding things to be grateful for, even if I really wasn't. What I mean is finding things to be grateful for, even if my situation wasn't something that made me really feel grateful. And I saw it bring more things to be grateful for into my life. And like when I turned my focus off of the negative things in my life, I started getting a lot of less negativity. That's how the programs I went through to help with my chronic pain at first, that was the key. They said, don't focus on the pain. Whatever you give your attention to, it will magnify. Like you're the awareness, the light of God. So where you put your awareness matters. And like you said, you'll get more of it. So you focus on physical pain in your own body. Guess what? You get more of it. You feed it. But when you're able to, when I was redirected to start paying attention to the present moment and what's going on here and now, not just the pain, it really changed things. So just all that to say, even though I'm not somebody who is well knowledged on like the history of karma, I did the, the spiritual math problem, and it really does work. You really
Yeah.
Yeah.
do. What you put out, you get back, and what you put your attention on, you get more of.
Yeah, that really is it. I mean, I think a lot of people think karma is some magical, mystical, I don't know, something in the ether, that's kind of hard to nail down, but it really is just your own unconscious propensities. It's your ego. It's the conditioned self. And all of that is the outflow of it, like all of what we're thinking about perpetually, or, the same actions, the same thought patterns. And really, it all begins at that thought level, right? Because we have a certain mental narrative, like worry, is an example. If you are continually worried about something, then the universe thinks, well, you must want more of that. Even though you're worrying about that happening because you don't want it to happen. But if that's where you're placing your awareness, the universe is like, okay, so you're focused on this, so I'm going to send you more of this. So it really is just it's very simple, but it's not easy because we're so conditioned. It's so automatic. That's another thing. It's conditioned and it's automatic. So in order to step out of it, you have to be intentional. Because if by default we're going to go with those karmic cycles.
Right. Yeah. And what both of you guys were just saying about just basically just karma, it's a universal law, like we were saying, and it's not just an earth law, like it's a universal law. So the whole universe is governed by this cause and effect. And I guess it's the easiest, simplest way we can put it in like human terms is like, it's just a rule. It's just a rule that is
Gravity.
there. Yeah, it's just
It's
like
like
gravity.
gravity.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
like gravity.
whether you believe in it or not, guess what? It's there.
Yeah,
It's the law of the universe.
yeah, and the
Yes.
laws of the universe are there to balance out everything, and that's what keeps everything balanced. So, like, you don't have if you have a evil faction that attacks another innocent faction or something, the laws of cause and effect will happen, and that's just the balancing act of the universe.
Yeah.
And we'll
Yeah.
talk more in this episode, I think, about how you can't like. Some people try to scapegoat that, but we'll talk about that in a little bit.
That's right. Yeah, you can't escape it. Eventually you have to face those karmic cycles. I had somebody tell me you were talking about it's like gravity. It's just a law, which is so true. But I had somebody say, "Oh, I don't believe in karma," and I'm like, "Well, that's okay. You don't have to believe in it to be caught in its grip."
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like oxygen or gravity or anything. It's 100% of the time it works.
Mhm.
So
Yep.
yeah,
I think it can scare people too, especially from like Christian faith backgrounds, because it's not, if you recognize karma is a law of the universe, then you recognize that simply having the correct religion is not what gets you off this planet.
right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
now, no, you actually have to do right and be grateful and love and treat people well, and even the Bible says faith without works is dead.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, karma's in the Bible. There are verses. I mean, of course, the word karma is not, but in Job, what he says, I have observed those who plow evil and sow trouble, and they reap it, something like
Yeah.
that. And then, like in the Psalms, it's like I think it was David said, the trouble they cause recoils on them. Their violence comes down on their own heads. And we know, Paul talks about whatever a man sows, that he will also reap. So reaping and sowing, I don't know. I mean, it's woven into the tapestry. It's the fabric of reality. Nobody can escape it. And so, yeah, it's in Scripture, but it's just the word karma is not in Scripture. So I think a lot of people kind of push back on it, like, oh, I don't believe in karma. That's an Eastern concept or whatever. But it's the same thing as reaping and sowing.
Yeah, just different words. I heard somebody say the universe always says yes.
Yeah.
So whatever you ask, like, whatever you put out, the answer is yes. So like you said, if you put out worry, negativity, I don't know, discouragement, the answer is yes, I'll give you more of that.
Right.
But when you put
Yeah.
out that gratitude, that love, that contentment, the answer is yes, I'll give you more to be grateful and content and loving
Yeah.
about.
That's right. Yeah.
And a lot of people probably some people aren't gonna understand this, and that's okay. But the universe doesn't, like y'all have said, the universe just isn't, it's, it's not there to say you're a good person and you're a bad person and this is going to happen to you because I like you and I don't like you. It's just cause and effect. It's the laws of the universe, and what you can tune into is what you get back. If what you put
Yeah.
out there, and it's what you get back. And some people don't really want to hear that. They want to hear like, "Why, I'm good, so I deserve this." Well, and then you look at Joe Blow over there making millions of dollars, who's a worthless scumbag, and you're like, "How is that?" But you know, it's
Yeah.
just.
Yeah.
It's just they're
And I mean,
tuned into something different, it's what it is.
They might have an abundance mindset, or who
Exactly, yeah.
knows? Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Because it's about the inner, really. I mean, we're getting back, what we're putting out of vibration from our inward thoughts and emotions. And so, like I said, the universe responds to who we really are, not who we pretend to be. So on the surface, we may look one way, but deep down, we're getting what we're a vibrational match for. So yeah,
And I
it
guess
really
that
is.
that would include like the lessons we have to learn here, right? If you don't overcome them, they'll keep coming back.
Yeah.
And you notice that like I notice that I get the same type of problems over
Oh,
and over throughout the years.
yeah.
And it's not until I like just sit with it and learn from it and overcome it that now it'll quit happening. And I see it in friends and family, like they deal with the same BS every day
Mhm.
until they not
Yeah.
instead of just plowing through it, no, like transcend it, let it change
Yeah.
you, let it teach you. That's your karma. Learn from it. And even, I think, even like our parents and our family, that's your karma. You're supposed to
Yeah.
learn from who you're placed here with. Like everybody's here to teach you something.
Yeah, 100%. And like some people, well, they would may get married 5 times, 6 times, whatever, and they're having the same problems with every spouse. Well, at some point, you have to back up and reflect. Hey,
Mhm.
what is it about me that keeps, because you are the common denominator in all of these relationships, and you are having these same issues with all of these people. Perhaps it's not the other people. So we're playing out those same dynamics in all of our relationships and all of our situations.
Annelise told me one time, she told me, some people are just addicted to what they need to change, and that's
Yeah.
really true. I've
We
seen that in
are.
a lot of people,
Yeah, we are addicted to our thoughts and those patterns of thoughts. It is an addiction because it is like a compulsion that grips us.
can just can't,
Um,
and most people just can't stop, or like you just said, like get out of their way of,
yeah,
the karma wheel, the wheel of karma. Yep.
right. It's unconscious too. That's another important thing
Exactly.
to note is that it is unconscious. It's not as though people are running around caught in the grip of karma in a conscious capacity. No, I mean we know not what we do, right? So
Yeah.
that's really the the difficult aspect of it. But yeah, maybe we should discuss some common misconceptions or pitfalls of karma. I mean, the first one that comes to mind for me is victim blaming because it's easy, to view the concept of karma and drop into blaming people for their misfortunes. Like we all experience, though, both favorable and unfavorable favorable things for a multitude of reasons. And Jesus said the rain falls on the righteous and the wicked. So, and like I just said, our karma is largely unconscious. So it's not about beating ourselves up or accusing others of wrongdoing. It's about awakening. It's about realizing that it's all an elaborate illusion designed to awaken us. And when we accuse suffering people of having some terrible sin in their lives, that just lacks compassion and it ignores a multitude of factors that contribute to a person's present situation. It's an oversimplification and it's a trap of that conditioned ego. That is your own karma, right? So when we judge others, we're just sinking deeper into that unconscious wheel of karma. I mean, which is it's absurd. So it's almost funny when you think about it like that. I'm reminded of Job, like his friends just kept hammering him with accusations while he was suffering because they were just so certain that he must have done something, to bring this disaster upon himself. But in the story, we're told that he didn't do anything to deserve the misfortune. So yeah, karma, it isn't punishing us. It's bringing us what we need to evolve and grow. And it may not make sense in the moment with our limited zoomed in perspective. So we do well to just, hold it all with grace and not, bring our judgments against others or even ourselves in the midst of suffering and misfortune.
Yeah, and I want to add this as and Brandy, you're so right about all what you just said. I just want to say, like, the reason that there's not just one big wave of karma for, like, say, the whole masses or the mass population of people per se is, this is the scientific part, is because, and we'll get into this a little bit more down the road as well, but everybody is their own consciousness. Everybody is projecting their reality. Everybody has a different reality. My reality is different than Annelise's reality and Brandy's reality, and nothing is the same. Like, yes, we see things as the same. Like, this microphone is black. Yes. But the way I maybe perceive this microphone is different than, say, Brandy does. Or it's just all kinds of things. And when you have that knowledge of you're projecting your reality, this is all a hologram. You're projecting your whole entire outcome of your life. So if you're sitting there and you're just down on your luck, poor me, like we've been saying, the universe is going to say, oh, poor you, you love that. So here, but when you can change that and do your shadow work, you can transcend that. You can just become a different person, really. And then when you do that, your decision makings change and your karma lessens and eventually goes away. And that's what the goal of this life is. But I will say, this had a whole astronomical or a astrological thing just happened about going into Aquarius from Pisces about maybe the wheel of karma possibly, being ended or whatever. I found that very fascinating because, we are starting a brand new cycle, the golden age. Yeah, I just threw a whole lot of stuff at y'all, but it was in like a linear fashion, at least.
I'm tracking.
Yeah.
I have really come to see Earth as a school in the last few years, where I used to just see Earth, like you said, Brandy, as a victim. Like, things are happening to me. Oh, this trauma has happened to me, rather than now I'm able to look at it and say, all right, what am I supposed to learn from this to transcend it, so I don't have to come back here and learn this again?
Yeah.
um, and I had a friend recently. I was telling her a situation with a close friend of mine, and we were debating, like, how should I respond in this situation? And she said, don't you create karma. Don't go creating karma for yourself. She said, you respond with love. You respond with just love. Because if you do anything else, you create karma for yourself. Don't
Yeah.
do that. And
Yeah.
yeah, just, I think being able to view Earth not as you're a victim here to things that happen to you, but more as you're a student here in this school, and you're here to awaken. It
And create.
changes the
Yeah.
whole game. Yeah, and
Yeah.
create. You're here to be a creator and learn.
Yeah. And I like what you mentioned, Parker, about the collective aspect of karma, because there is a collective aspect. I mean, like
Hmm.
I said, karma really is just the unconscious,
Yeah.
driving force behind everything, all of our compulsions and propensities individually, but also collectively. There is a collective unconscious that, I mean, the systems of
Yeah.
the world. I mean, it's this huge force in the world. And so we are trying to manage or balance, maybe a better word, our own karmic cycles, but also we're living in a world that has collective karmic cycles churning
Yeah.
out also simultaneously. And so, yeah, we do have to be mindful of how we respond. And that's why it is important to do our shadow work and to practice
Hmm.
mindfulness and to, and to respond instead of react. Because, yeah, we're just, not only are we creating more karma for ourselves, but we also we're pouring into that collective consciousness, that collective karma with all of our actions.
Right. Yeah. Everybody's individual consciousness makes up the collective consciousness.
Yeah.
And, I think that really goes into like the Great Awakening,
Hmm.
3D to 5D. I mean, if we're here to do that for you guys, is to at least be on the same journey as with us with this stuff, to go to do that. So
Yeah, it's
listen.
not no accident that we're all experiencing, these awakenings over the last several years, that we're all experiencing the struggles that come with it. Clearly we're going through something collectively. We were chosen to be here during this time, I believe, for very big purposes. And what one does, it impacts everybody.
Yeah. And the more people who awaken to this stuff that we're saying and to their true self of having that spark of God within you and being a creator, we weren't put here to, to work a job. I'm just sorry, but we just weren't. And once we kind of get back to that, go back to like why we were really here, things will change. And by that, every individual person starts to change. And then, like we just said, the collective starts to change. When the collective changes, it's what's happening right now. That's what's happening right now. Think about 2000, think about 2000, 2010. Think about that time frame. Now think about how different today is compared to that time frame. I mean, the collective mindset of everything has changed, has sped up. Every time has moved so fast. I know everybody feels that. I know everybody feels how fast time is moving right now.
Yeah, I'm feeling it so much faster. The days feel like half days. It was super recently that I started to feel a real uptick in my perceived time. Yes.
Yeah. 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 I mean, I think we all feel it on a collective level, but a lot of the world is just distracted. And so they're not really, stopping to pay attention, But if we look at just the history, the evolution of humanity, the history, originally, humans lived a lot longer. I mean, look, in the biblical times, it's hundreds of years. I forget how long the longest lifespan was, but it was a long time, hundreds of years. And so now, we're lucky if we get 100 years. And so, and I have asked my sources on the other side, and they do say yes, people really did live that long. Those biblical accounts are accurate. It's not metaphorical; it's literal. And so, but over time, we time has changed in a sense. And according to my sources, it's because it's for growth and learning. It's to help us evolve, shortening the lifespans. We have less time and we really feel the pinch, right? It's like things are kind of closing in. And so under that pressure, it's designed to awaken us, really. I mean, we need not suffer to awaken, but oftentimes that is the catalyst. And so all of life is just squeezing us, hoping that we will, wake up out of this vicious cycle that we find ourselves in.
Yeah. And, the earth goes through the same kind of changes as well. Like, we'll go back to I guess before dinosaurs, mushrooms were as big as oak trees and stuff like that, and with I would say personally, with each cataclysm brings a whole new different earth. And, you had that with the mushrooms, but the paleo time, and then you had the dinosaur, the Jurassic time, that stuff, that was that earth is different than this earth, obviously, not just animals, but just everything was different. So then that happened. Wipe that out. The flood happened, that stuff was different. People's lifespans were a lot longer. The flood happened. It's just things change, just like what we were just saying about the earth changing and the time cycle changing. Personally believe this is a new earth coming down. This is a brand new earth. People like us, people like whoever's listening to this podcast, people who have children that, are raising to be like this, I really believe this is the beginning of the new earth. Just to
I agree with that.
Yeah, just to get out from up under the imaginary boot that we had put on us collectively, unconsciously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, I mean, everything will be different eventually. Our music, our entertainment, the way we practice medicine, everything is going to be new in a better, more holistic way, I think, if we continue on this trajectory of collectively awakening.
Yeah. I think another huge pitfall of the concept of karma is viewing it through a deterministic lens. Some might begin to interpret karma as fixed fate, or a deterministic force that predestines our lives. And that can limit this awakening that we're talking about here. Because if you feel like, you are fated, to be a certain way, or, for things to unfold in a certain manner, you may not try to awaken which, some people believe that outside of the Christian faith, but there's a whole section of Christianity, Calvinistic belief, with is the predetermined or predestination belief. So, and if you think that, then you feel like, you really have no
What
will
are you
of your
doing?
own. Yeah, what are you
Yeah.
even doing? You can't awaken within that belief system. So, I think this is a good place to discuss the implications of free will as it relates to karma. In my experience communicating with my loved ones through the veil, it brought a lot of clarity for me around that topic of karma as it relates to free will. And so I would just say that free will is central to everything, really.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that they won't even share with us because it would violate free will in some capacity. And the more that I've engaged them in philosophical and theological conversation, the more I understand that free will really is the foundation of karma itself. So we're not fated in a way that, that we don't have free will. It's just that our wills are conditioned. And so as long as we are operating out of that conditioning, that is what karma is. In that capacity, we're not free because we're caught in the grip, right, of karma. So I would just say that karma is enforcing the law of free will, though. For example, if we honor and support the free will of others, we're essentially choosing love. And so to love someone is to allow them to be totally free. But if we manipulate the free will of others, we're choosing control, which is the antithesis of love. And I'm sure most people in spiritual circles have heard that every choice we make is a decision between love and fear. It gets kind of set up in that juxtaposition. Well, if you take it to its logical conclusion, you begin to see that choosing love honors freedom and choosing fear leads to control, which always violates freedom. And it really is as simple as that. Life isn't random. Our choices are directing our lives, whether we know it consciously or not. And you don't have to believe in karma to be caught in its grip. That's really what I'd like to reinforce here. Yeah, I'll just stop here before I say more about free will and see what Parker and Annelise are thinking.
Well, so I'll go into like secret society stuff. Okay. These people, they really think that, I guess it's not really thinking because it's actually true, but with the laws of the universe, you can kind of circumvent that if you kind of tell the person what's going to happen to them. And if they unknowingly accept it, that's on them. And that means, then it's okay. And that sounds really preposterous and weird, but that's just how it is, because that's the law of the universe. It's balancing it out. And these people know that, and you don't. Not, I'm not really talking about you, but you know what I mean? Like, the masses don't. They sit there and they put their movies out, they put their songs out, and it has all these messages in it that, people are like, daggum, I saw a movie like a year ago that said this was going to happen, or something so similar, or, some, news articles will come out. Next thing you know, 9/11 happens. All kinds of things are put out there in plain sight. That's why they say evil hides in plain sight, because it can't not hide in plain sight, because it would be dealt with. So, when people subconsciously or unknowingly subconsciously accept that by going to see that movie and having that downloaded into your mind, you unknowingly accept that, and because you don't fight against it, you don't do anything to change it, and they know that, and that's why a lot of this evil stuff keeps happening over and over and over and over again. All the movies keep saying the same stuff that's happening. You can, like that Baltimore bridge that collapsed. I mean, wasn't there a movie like 3 months before that had the same exact scene happening? Like the Obama movie or whatever movie that was that he put out about the world ending. So it's just pretty, that's what I want to say about that, because that's
Yeah, it's right. It's like it's disclosure where,
yeah,
like you were saying, they're trying to skirt around the effects of karma, like, well, if I tell people what I'm doing, if
yeah,
we inform people, then, then we won't have this. We're not,
subliminally.
yeah. But the thing about that, though, is that it always boils down to our heart posture, our motives. And if we are a negative polarity person, eventually all of that karma
It will
will
come
come
back.
back on us. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, we can't ultimately prosper with that type of mindset. But the sad thing is that, relatively speaking, people do prosper. Systems prosper.
Exactly. That's what I'm talking
Yeah.
about, like the
Yeah,
systems,
yeah,
Yeah.
and it
because
has
people are
momentum.
pawns.
There is
Right.
a momentum behind karma. I mean, we feel it in our individual um psyche. I mean,
Hmm.
there's a momentum like you can't. I think in Buddhism it's called shenpa. It's that feeling that grips you, and it has you locked in. And so collectively it's even more intense. So it's, yeah, definitely there is a momentum behind it. So it's hard to awaken out of like mass conditioning.
Yeah.
Parker, because what you were saying, I mean, the secret societies, the people at the top, they think like that's their loophole. That's how they can create the reality they want
Yeah.
through you, right? Like
Without you
if
knowing.
you yeah, if you see that movie, you see like for instance all the Simpsons clips, the
Yeah,
that
exact.
that
Perfect.
show
Yeah,
you
exactly.
history a couple years before it
Exactly.
happens, like 9/11. You see it happen, then it happens in real life a couple years later and you go, "Well, that's weird. That was in the Simpsons a few years ago." Well, they put that thought in your head. We're all now a part of creating that collective reality and
Exactly.
they're not, they get that loophole of, well, I don't have to deal with it because they did it to themselves because they went along with me. And
The collective starts thinking about it, and then it starts to mass produce because of manifestation, and that's how they
yeah,
do it. That's how they create their kingdom
yeah,
here on Earth.
Yeah.
They use us as these pawns
Oh
where
yeah.
yeah.
they, like she just said, exactly what she just said. Exactly.
Yeah.
I told Parker, I took our kids to the movies recently and saw an two different trailers for children's alien movies coming out this summer. So one is a little boy who's looking up at the sky. He's just obsessed with the idea of aliens. Everyone tells him, "You're crazy, that's not real." And then finally they come, they see him. It's this cute story. He becomes friends with the little alien boy on board and all this stuff. And then they're rebooting the Lilo and Stitch as like a real life movie. And I texted him and I was like, they are trying to get the children ready, I think, just for like what's coming one day, so that the children will be friendly to it and so that, everybody's a part of it, which is, I do wonder, usually that's for a bad reason, but this one seems almost for a good reason, like so children will be calm if this type of thing comes in the future. But it's just one of those loopholes, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we see it like you were saying in the film industry and all of these, there are little breadcrumbs if we would follow them. But, most people are asleep and they just kind of write that stuff off. I don't know. Or they watch, I don't know. They consume,
Yeah.
movies, entertainment in such mass quantities that I don't know.
They're
It
not in
doesn't
their
resonate. Yeah. They're
they're
not
not in their
catching it.
reality.
Yeah.
Like you just said. Sorry to cut you off, Brandy.
No. Yeah. 100%.
That there's nothing. Listen, there's nothing wrong with watching Netflix. There's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. But when you are escaping your reality after work, I know everybody likes to do this and everything else, but listen, people, it's a part of a system. They're just doing that to keep you into the same system. If you could just learn to free yourself, you wouldn't even want to watch that. Me, once you get on this path, I don't really think most people really want to sit down and watch a show, most of the time, like binge watch a show, like,
Most of
but
that stuff is a distraction.
exactly. Yeah.
And if you come into alignment, you don't need to distract yourself from yourself. See, people have this like underlying anxiety, this angst, existential angst. And so when they're not actually going within and doing that shadow work, it's just kind of this hum under the surface of tension, of anxiety. And so entertainment is how people avoid feeling that anxiety. Yeah, they just numb out watching
Yeah.
television or whatever their thing may be. For some people, it's drugs and alcohol. And yeah, it just keeps people stuck in that hamster wheel. Um,
Mm-hmm.
It
yeah,
takes
And it's
that free willpower away from them. Like you
yeah.
yeah,
think you have free will, but if you're programming your awareness with what they want you to program it with, you've really given your free will away unknowingly because your awareness is your greatest power. Your awareness is that consciousness of the divine. So where you put it is super important for where you're going.
Yeah. And I think, I think it's important to maybe clarify free will, like you were just saying, Annalise. Because like you just said, people think, oh, well, I'm a free agent. I have free will. I'm making my own choices. And that's a common debate in religious circles. Are we predestined or do we have free will? And I just say we are free agents, but we are only free to the degree that we have awakened out of this 3D world of form. Because there is freedom and then there's the will, but there's no such thing as free will because that will is always conditioned. That is the karma, right? And so if we think about it, we've all felt it. It's that overwhelming pull into something we may not consciously want. So, well, we may say, oh, yeah, I'm freely choosing. Are we really? Because that's the story of every addiction. That conditioned will just driving us to take another drink or snort another line or eat that cupcake, whatever your thing is. We've all felt it. And it's such a compulsion that we cannot possibly think we are free while we are caught in these cyclical compulsions. So yeah, we're only free to the point that we do our shadow work and let go and awaken into the truth of who we're created to be.
Yeah.
And karma honors freedom at every turn. It works to liberate us from that tyranny of that conditioned ego. It brings us the people, situations, and circumstances that we need to grow and evolve.
Yeah, it's really a kind of a beautiful thing. I feel like it could be seen as negative, like, oh, karma's a bee, you'll get your karma. But karma can also be beautiful.
Right.
You can
Yeah.
have really good karma, and you put the good out. You learn your lessons. You overcome that shadow, and it can be a really cool thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, one thing that's been coming up for me lately is like karma is often described, as, well, I'll put it this way. Karma is a wheel. And so it's not linear, it's cyclical. So it's a pattern that just keeps circling around until we wake up and transcend that wheel entirely. And that's something that I've been just really reflecting on lately, like the cyclical nature of reality. And we keep repeating the same story on loop over and over, both individually and collectively, like we've been saying, because we are asleep at the wheel. But that archetype is written into all of life. That's something that I was really, really reflecting on this past week. And it's known as the hero's journey. And so the hero's journey is reflected in the 22 cards of the major arcana of the tarot. It's the storyline of every myth, every fairy tale, and it's the basis of all screenplays. And it's true because it's inscribed on the consciousness of the source field itself. Like we're all tapped into that one collective consciousness. And so this hero's journey, this archetype of the hero's journey, of course, it's in everyone's mind, right? And it's reflected in all of our stories, all of our myths, the children's stories that we tell. And if we stop and notice, we begin to see that that's those same patterns of thought, those same actions, that same collective flow. It just keeps churning out those same opportunities to awaken. And it's the repetition that should jolt us out of our trance. Like when we begin to see that there is nothing new under the sun, as we're told in Ecclesiastes, I mean, the absurdity of it all comes into focus. And they say that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results, right? Well, insanity is our default condition until we do awaken and step off of this wheel of karma, because it is not linear. It is cyclical. We're not achieving anything through going through all of this karma. It's not like it's linear and it's bringing us into awakening over time. Time does not awaken us. Our awareness does. So, yeah, I don't know. That's just something I've been thinking about, how it's a will.
Yeah, no,
And we
you're right.
literally have to step out of it to get free from it.
Let me just say, everything's in a cycle. Even the civilizations are on a cycle as well. Like this isn't the very first, like, humanity, or, we aren't the first people here on Earth. Like, there's
Right.
been multiple, like, who knows? Like, there's been multiple civilizations here on Earth, So, I mean, it's all on a time loop. Like, if you like look back at like Atlantis, some Egyptian records talk about Atlantis, and it was talking about how Atlantis fell was they just got too technical above their spirituality, and it just was the downfall for them. And, it just, even before that, you maybe, Lemuria or something. But, now you kind of see it coming full circle again. We're going like into this, like, if AI takes like one more step, we're going to all be slaves to AI, pretty much. That's how close we are to being too technical. So, like you were saying, Brandy, we really have to. We're on a cycle, like you said,
Yeah.
and if you look at some of these time frames with the cycles, it's kind of scary because we're
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
getting there.
It's a cosmic merry-go-round,
Right.
and people do often get caught up in thinking about good karma, like they want to accumulate good karma, but really it's those same cycles, right, over and over again. And we can watch history repeat itself. And it does, like we come back, and the way it does work is through these reincarnation cycles, generations repeating, like you were talking about, Parker. It's a repetition, and we're seeing the same story playing out, unfolding over and over. And so really, because it does repeat itself, it's designed that way to awaken us. I mean, surely at some point we could say, wait a minute, like, haven't I
Yeah.
done this before? Is it this deja vu, right? I mean, we just keep going in the same circles until we wake up.
A question I've wondered a lot personally, and I have thoughts, but I want to hear y'all's thoughts, is how do you get off the wheel of karma? How do you stop having to come here and do this thing over and over?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think, a lot of people think the point is to generate good karma, like do good deeds and have a good return to you. But the point is really not to generate good karma, but to step off that wheel of karma altogether entirely. And I'd put it this way: we need to transcend karma, which is to say we need to rise above it in order to be free from it. It's like we come into this incarnation and we have a constriction of awareness. And then when we leave, we have like an expansion of awareness. But we need to awaken in the dream, so to speak. We need to get more of a zoomed out, expansive view while we are in it so that we can transcend it. Good karma is more desirable than bad karma for sure, but it's still just rearranging furniture on the Titanic. So some people think that time is a factor in spiritual awakening. Like I've heard some people say that over time we learn and we grow and we generate enough karma to finally awaken and evolve. But time does not free us from karma. Only our awareness, our consciousness frees us from karma. And so having said all that, I think mindfulness practice is maybe the best tool in becoming aware and transcending karma. And it really, the only way to break the karmic cycle is to embrace love, which is to say, transcend that binary dualistic mind that labels and divides and judges. Jesus understood the need to transcend the karmic law, as it was set forth by Moses. If we look, Moses said an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, right? And then Jesus comes along and says, well, you have heard it said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth, but I tell you, do not resist, an evil person. Go the extra mile. Turn the other cheek, love your enemies, and pray for your persecutors. So Jesus is saying that participating in us versus them systems of the world just keeps us trapped in these karmic cycles. And he knows that the only way forward is in transcending that dualism that is the fuel in the engine of karma. Dualism really fuels the engine of karma.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Those are my thoughts too. As a karma newbie, was Jesus showed us how. I believe that's what he meant by eternal life. Is that you live this way, you recognize that you can have that spirit of Christ within you. You live that way, and now you can step into your eternal life rather than on this wheel of karma. Now, of course, I don't have memory of a lifetime before this. I'm as amnesic as anybody, but that makes the most sense to me. I guess, are we saying, or Brandy, would you say that if you live like Jesus lived, if you awaken to that oneness, that at the end of this lifetime, would there be a decision? Like, would there be a opportunity to say, I want to go and just take a rest for a while in the in the sweet by and by,
Yeah.
and never come back, or maybe come back later? Like, what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, my grandmother tells me that reincarnation is a choice, always a choice. So no one is just perpetually spit back into this, incarnated form. But we often choose it so that we can learn our lessons because Earth, this world of duality is perfect. It's a school, so it helps us. That friction, that tension, that duality helps us to awaken. And oftentimes on the other side, well, my grandmother tells me that on the other side, it's harder to do our inner work. And she emphasizes the importance of waking up now, do your work now, stay in the incarnation and learn the lessons, do the work now. But when we do cross, like I said, we have that expansion of awareness, and that's time in between carnations, which is called the bardo in Eastern, like in the Tibetan book of the dead, it's called the bardo, but it's just really the unseen realm. And we spend time in that bardo learning our lessons and integrating those lessons. So we have that expansion of awareness. We remember all of our past lives, and then we integrate everything so that if we do choose to come back, we've integrated some lessons and we're ready to cultivate more lessons in this incarnated form. But yeah, you can just opt out. You can say, I don't want to reincarnate anymore. And, and you will reach a certain level of consciousness where, like I said, it's always a choice. But like if you had reached an enlightened state, for instance, why would you wouldn't need to come back and learn those karmic lessons. And when you do, because of the amnesia, when you do come back, you risk getting caught in that drama again, right? Like, so if you're an advanced soul and you're coming back to help humanity raise their consciousness, which that happens, we've heard of star seeds and other people who have incarnated from higher densities back into the earth, back into this 3D reality. Those people run the risk of, getting caught in the drama. So, and if you do that, you're stuck in that wheel again, right? Because you have to awaken, even though you may be here to guide other people. You still have to do your own work first and foremost, right? We can only help people to the point that we've done our own inner work. So yeah, my grandmother tells me she doesn't want to reincarnate. So she says, and when I said, why not? She said, would you want to? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I guess I'm here. I don't, but yeah, life is hard, right? That struggle. So truly, the goal should be not to accumulate good karma and come back and have, a cushy life or whatever. That should not be it at all. It should be to opt out. It should be to awaken, learn our lessons, integrate, and move up into those higher densities where ultimately death doesn't exist. See, right? That's our issue, right? As long as we keep circling through these incarnations, we die. We're mortality. Not only us, but we lose loved ones, because to be human, to be mortal, is to suffer death and to suffer loss through death. And so really it's about awakening collectively to a point where death ceases to exist. And yeah, everything sad becomes untrue. I think it was Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings. I think that's, yeah. So I think that's a beautiful way to say it.
I think that's a beautiful explanation. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've thought about it a lot, talking about Well, that was the first thing that my grandmother shared with me from the other side that really wasn't a part of my worldview. It was reincarnation. She said that reincarnation was true, and I was like, whoa. So that, kind of switched everything in a way that I had to back up and just reevaluate some of my beliefs. But it makes the most sense, and it really is a testament to the grace of God that and we're going to get into reincarnation next week, so I don't want to kind of keep going down that rabbit trail. But yeah, I do want to say this though, that I think forgiveness is ultimately the key to awakening out of these cycles of karma. And my understanding of forgiveness has shifted over the years too. I remember early in my church journey, I understood forgiveness to be something I needed from God, like an external Zeus-like God, so that I could go to heaven when I died. And so the idea of forgiveness just always conjured up feelings of like guilt and shame. And I don't know, it's just framed in such a negative way. But as I have transcended the church, I've come to see that our salvation, which is to say liberation, because that's what the word in its original context really means, it hinges on forgiveness, not from an external God, but from ourself. So God is love, which is to say that God is forgiving by nature. So God has never withheld forgiveness. It is we who are harboring unforgiveness for ourselves, first and foremost, and then others. And also I see now, in retrospect, I see forgiveness as the equivalent of allowing. So to forgive is to allow. And that just frames it in a much more life-giving capacity. So it's not transactional. It's not about judging wrong and overlooking it. It's about allowing everything to be as it is without judgment at all. And we cannot be free. We cannot have inner peace or come into alignment. We can't be saved, to use Christian terms, unless we forgive ourselves first and also others, our enemies, our friends, our family. We need to forgive life for being as it is, really. And I believe that's why A Course in Miracles is so powerful. The miracle is forgiveness, right? And it's the only way to experience salvation. So I think it's framed perfectly to bring people into that liberated state. And there's a verse in Matthew 6 where Jesus says, if you forgive other people when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. And his words there are often misinterpreted to convey God as transactional. But he's really just speaking of the universal law of reciprocity. It's mirroring. Most people recognize it as woven into the law of attraction. But I like to frame it in psychological terms because it is all projection.
Yeah.
Like what we are most critical of in others is what we most dislike in our own selves. So we project our shadows out there onto other people, then we condemn them rather than acknowledging our own unfavorable aspects. And like Jesus said, it's why we look for that speck in our brother's eye while we have this log in our own eye, right? And notice that he said, get the log out of your own eye before trying to help your brother with whatever is in his eye. Like, in other words, stop projecting. And when we stop projecting, we forgive ourselves first. Then we can help our neighbor with that speck with compassion instead of judgment. See, that's the point. If we're trying to help people while we have this log in our eye, we're doing it out of, we're judging. We're very judgy. So yeah, it's all about forgiveness. I think, forgiveness is really central to our liberation.
Yeah. I think what you were saying about forgiveness, I personally look at it like, I don't know, like if you're a human or a you or whatever, you have all these problems and they're connected to you like a string or something. And when you forgive that problem, like say, I don't know, say you had parent problems and that left a big deep wound or something where you just can't get over it. Like it was horrible. Your childhood was very bad. Well, that's the cord. You're dragging that along. You're dragging that along your whole entire life, and when you forgive that, it cuts that cord and, it betters your life in that way. So maybe in a visual sense, that's a better way to kind of, not better way, but that's a good way to put it, where it's like, it's just baggage. Like people have heard that you have a lot of baggage. Well, just imagine that baggage, like you're towing it with, cords, and when you can forgive that person or that problem or that, yourself or whatever, it just really frees you and helps transcend.
Yeah, I love that. And, and also forgiveness is not amnesia. It doesn't mean that we forget, maybe, how we've been violated. And it also isn't saying that it's okay, because a lot of people would frame it like that. Like somebody might say, oh, I'm sorry that I said this to you. And you might say, oh, it's okay. And no, it's not okay. You're not saying it's okay to treat me this way. So forgiveness really is about just allowing things to be as they are without resistance, without clinging to it, and also without resisting it. And so with open hands, in other words. So you can say, yes, I was violated and it was awful and it hurt me deeply. And you can acknowledge that, and you can have boundaries with people because, if they are violating you, then perhaps they're toxic people who do not need to have access to your, their energy may be not something you want to let into your space. So it's good to have boundaries and use discernment and wisdom when dealing with people. But forgiveness really is for you and not them. And it's just for you to allow whatever has happened, space to be what it is. And all of the feelings that come with that, like also forgive the anger, allow the anger that you feel. Or, the indignation that you feel or whatever. It's an allowing of everything to be as it is without getting caught up in that drama, with that resistance and that clinging. Like we can spin things around over and over and cling to a certain unforgiveness, in our thoughts. Yeah. So it's letting go. Letting go.
It's like that John Lennon song, Let It Be, or the Beatles song, Let It Be. I sing that to myself a lot. Whatever the situation is, let it be. Let it be. And more of a challenge and a learning experience for me is letting people be how they are. And that a friend I mentioned earlier, she told me that it's the people in your life that maybe irritate you the most or bother you the most in your relationships with them that you chose to come here with so that they could teach you some big karma lesson that you weren't going to learn otherwise. And if you don't forgive and let them be as they are and let that relationship be as it is, and maybe look within and say, hey, why does this person bother me so much? Why do I feel this way? Like, let me look inside and see why and what I can learn from it. To me, that's a big part of the forgiveness is, let it be, let them, whatever they do, let them, but be sure to look inside and say, why does this bother me? Like, just get curious about it.
Yeah.
Why does the way that person behaves bother me and make me not like them? Because really it's showing you something about you.
Yeah.
If someone else has the power to irritate you, that's a you problem. And like look inside, well, why does that irritate me? Oh, because they have something I don't, or because, they did life this way and I did life this way and they got that. And, there's
Yeah.
always a reason,
Yeah.
but that forgiveness and allowance can really teach you something and I think get you over a hump in your own karma cycle.
Yeah, because that is the hook in us, right? I mean, we wouldn't have such a strong emotional charge if there wasn't a hook within us for that to, be activated. Like if you notice a behavior that you don't have in your shadow, if you haven't stuffed it down in your shadow, you just notice it. It's like,
Yeah.
it just is what it is. But if you feel some sort of strong emotional charge around it, be sure that it is projection and it's something within you that you're hurling out there onto to another. It's just that log in your own eye that I was just talking about. So yeah, it definitely is about when you have these triggers, look at them as growth opportunities, right? It's like, oh great, another growth opportunity. But it really is, when you feel that intense emotion rise up from within, it's yes, a chance to just say, that's interesting.
Yeah,
What
let me
Yeah.
look
what
at
is
that.
what is this trying to tell me? Because it's a message. It's all of that is a message trying to bring you back into your highest life path.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think a big lesson or karma bringer is for those who are parents, the souls that incarnate in your own children. That's your karma too. I've seen it in our own kids. They bring out what's the deepest stuffed down issue you have so that you have to work on it. And if you don't, then your relationship with them is not so good or, whatever it is. And I think that is so amazing and interesting. And when I first started learning about karma and reincarnation and all that, because obviously it's a stark difference from my worldview most of my life, um, I started listening to like some kids talking about their past lives. When you get children who are able to tell you about their past lives before they've forgotten, it's pretty powerful stuff if you ever go and listen. And at the time, I think our son was 4 or 5. I'm going to say 5. And I just got curious. I said, hey, weird question. Do you remember anything from before you got here? Like before this is what my kids have to deal with me. But do you remember anything before you got into your body, like before you were before you were here? And he stopped for a minute, like little bitty, 5 years old. He's in my lap. We're looking up at the stars. He says, well, I don't really remember anything. All I remember is choosing you to be my mommy. And that hit. I mean, I was just like, what? What? Because he was too young to make that up. He was too young to know to make that up. He said,
Yeah.
I don't really. It's pretty hazy, but I do remember choosing you to be my mommy. And I
Wow.
thought, wow. So, you chose me because I had to teach you some things, and I chose you because you had to teach me some things.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And with the forgiveness aspect of this, kind of like what we were saying a few minutes ago, it's not for the person. When you have like a little child that slaps another child upside the head, you like say, go over there and tell them you're sorry, and then you're like, oh, I forgive you. It's not really like that. It's like you're forgiving that situation to free yourself. Screw that other person. It's not even about them. It's about
That's
yourself.
not very forgiving.
When we boil it down to bettering ourselves, we don't have to like that person. We can just say, or like, we don't have to like harbor anything against them or anything. We just say like, all right, I forgive you. We're just gonna put it. It's done. It's over with.
I
So
think that's a good point, really, because we don't have to have warm, fuzzy feelings about someone to forgive them.
yeah, it's not about
Because,
being their friend
yeah,
again.
no, it's about allowing things to be
Right.
as they are. You know, Jesus on the cross dying said, "Forgive them, for they know not what they do." And so it doesn't mean that he didn't feel the agony of what was being done to him. And he probably didn't like them very much in that moment, but he was able to hold space for their level of consciousness and in that moment. And that's what we do. We hold space for people.
Yeah. I
It's
think
like
that,
closure too, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Because
you just close the situation out. I mean, if you're like a childhood problem and or if you have, I keep saying child, if you have some kind of deep problem, and you can just close it, that's what just kind of transcends it.
yeah, for sure. Well, do you guys have any other thoughts on karma?
one thought that I was saying earlier, but I think that you said that quote from the Bible where Jesus says, "Forgive them; they know not what they do."
Yeah.
I think that comes up a lot on this journey of awakening because now you have to deal with the reactions of people who say that they walk in truth or that they're, well, I'm religious, I go to church, and so this is the way you do it. You've gone wayward. And the difficult thing that comes up a lot for me, I guess, and but also for people that are on my TikTok, I see in the comments, they say like, how do you deal with people who criticize you or are hostile and just really just downright ugly to you about your spiritual awakening journey, when you divert from their path. And I said, that's what I said. I said, you forgive them because they know not what they do. They're programmed with what they're programmed with, like we all are, and they have their own karma to figure out, and they're not on your path. So just let them be as nasty as they need to be, and you put up the boundaries you need to put up,
Yeah.
but don't try to force them to be different or change them because
Yeah.
that's not your job. And
Right.
I don't know. I think that that's a part of the forgiving
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. And social media can be so hard to navigate because, like you said, all of that. So people can be so hostile. And angry, and they're just throwing venom. And I think it's important where this whole conversation, where you place your awareness. It's like life is an algorithm, just like your social media is an algorithm. And so what we place our awareness on, that's what we're going to get more of. And so for me, when people are nasty in the comments, I mean, it depends on the situation. I mean, everything is situational, but if people are just oppositional and they don't want to have, productive discourse, they're not interested in conversating in an intelligent way. They just want to, hammer their point and tell me how wrong I am and just spew venom. Well, then those people, they don't get access to my energy, to my space. And
That's right.
so, yeah, that's the beauty of social media. You can just delete, block, and place your awareness where, on more fruitful endeavors. I would rather place my awareness on the people who are really wanting to discuss things in an intelligent way and, and share in a productive way. And also, people who are angry like that, like you said, Annelise, they are asleep and they know not what they do, even though they're religious and they think they have things figured out. If they are attacking you in the comments, how Christ-like is that, right? So we have to just allow people to be where they are without trying to overpower them. See, then we would just drop into that same dualism if we started to engage people at that level. You cannot engage people in that kind of dualistic, petty type conversation and transcend. It's impossible. They're going to always pull you down to those lower levels of consciousness. So, yeah, it's just about, forgiving, allowing, and placing your awareness where it can be more productive for your own health and benefit.
Like my friend said, don't go creating karma. Don't go creating more karma for you to solve later.
Right.
Think about that when you're going to respond to somebody.
Yeah.
Do it for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a landmine out there. I'm telling you, it took me years to figure out because I feel like it's rude not to respond to people. And so everyone that would, make a comment, I felt like, well, I don't need to just ignore people. I should try to give people the benefit of the doubt. And, but I learned my lesson. Some people know you don't, you, you just don't engage. You just delete, block, and carry on. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is a good place to wrap up unless you guys have anything else to add.
Nothing here. I'm looking forward to next week reincarnation
too.
discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah, me
everybody
too.
stay tuned. Next week we're gonna dive into reincarnation. This kind of set the stage for that whole conversation. So I'm looking really forward to it. But yeah, thank you all for transcending this rabbit hole with us. And as always, cosmic blessings and peace.
Do you ever grow discouraged by the weight of this world? Does Big Brother get you down with all the lies that he's told? Does the gloom and doom of nightly news haunt your dreams? So you scroll instead of sleep, 'cause distraction is key. But as long as there is still a sun up in the sky, I can choose to live on the sunny side. It's somewhere between burying my head in the sand and falling down the rabbit hole again. I was sleeping just fine peacefully inside my American dream, awoken when those puppet strings were cut right off. The evidence you can't ignore, sheriff call you misinformed. I know the truth, but trying not to lose my mind. I'm somewhere between burying my head in the sand and falling down the rabbit hole again. It takes a worried man to sing a worried song, and the state of humankind had me humming along. Hello, common sense, I'm convinced we've lost our way, sold our attention to the system. Now there's power to reclaim, but as long as there's a heart beating in my chest, I will cling to hope that's true. I will